A few weeks ago, I went out and I saw Shazam! Fury of the Gods, and as we all well know now, the movie didn't exactly do too well. Whether it's because you thought the movie was bad or you didn't know it ever came out in theaters, it didn't do too hot. Now, I do believe Shazam! Fury of the Gods is a fun movie and you will enjoy it if you watch it. It's nowhere near as good as its predecessor, and that's because of one major reason. Shazam! Fury of the Gods is bloated. It's a prime example of bigger is not always better. This movie has an extreme issue with putting in too much stuff and trying to cram it all into like a 2-hour medium when honestly it probably would have been better as like a 2-part movie or like a mini series. It kind of has the same issue as Eternals. We have too many characters and plot threads to explore that we don't get enough time to flesh everything out. And that's very prevalent in all the character arcs in this movie, especially since the character of Billy Batson is not in the movie like at all. For the majority of the movie, it's Zachary Levi as Shazam. He rarely ever turns back into Billy Batson throughout the course of the entire film, which is kind of sad given the fact that they were very much co-leads in the original, switching back and forth from each other as the scenario called for it and the story, necessitated them doing so. This movie doesn't really have the time to do so because Billy's siblings have upgraded from an accessory to his character arc to side characters now. So now they all need things to do that connect us to them as characters. Take, for example, Billy's sister, Mary. Mary in this movie is established to be of college age, and she's trying to get into college, get her own place, get her own job, and make money and start her own life so she can not only help herself, but help her family out. And there's one other scene afterwards where we see her get hung over because apparently she went out the night before with people her own age, which she had been craving that interaction for. But that's kind of it. We don't really explore it anymore past that. There's a scene where she talks to Billy about the fact that he's about to turn 18 and the family's already struggling with money, so he might end up getting kicked out of their household because he'll have aged out of the adoption program. And it's kind of just like, okay, this is a thing that Billy needs to explore, right? But we don't really get to see that. Billy is said to have a codependency issue this entire movie with wanting to keep his family together. They even have a rule that they do not go into Shazam form on their own. They have to do it as a unit, which is great and all. I like seeing that Billy became codependent on his family because he's afraid of losing them. But at the same time, we don't get to explore that often. And like I said, Billy Batson as a teenager isn't in the movie all that often. It's Shazam. So we don't get to see Billy go through these character arcs, and the movie just doesn't have time because there's too many other characters to deal with and throw stuff at the screen at us to keep us entertained and the pace of the movie going. It doesn't have the levity like the first movie did to stop and slow down. The first movie had plenty of time to slow down and let us connect with Billy and Freddy. We had scenes of them just hanging out and buying alcohol. We had scenes of them having a training montage. We had blowout scenes like the bus sequence where after Billy caught everyone off the bus, Freddy snapped at him for being a showboating jackass. Like, we don't have all of these small scale interpersonal moments like we did in the first one because we just don't have time. Anytime we want to slow down, it's like, wait, we didn't do anything with this character, so we have to do something with this character. And then it's like, okay, we want to slow down again. Oh, wait, we need an action scene because things will get too slow. There's just something going on all the time. And granted, it's good to keep your mind fixated on the screen because stuff is constantly happening. You don't have a moment to breathe, but you don't have a moment to breathe at the same time. And that's what made the first Shazam so beautiful. It worked so well because it was a small scale story about a boy trying to find a new family. And he happened to get godlike superpowers along the way that helped him learn his lesson. So that's what made the first one so fantastic, especially since the villain of the first one was so relatable and connected to Billy on a fantastic level. It worked in such a nitty-gritty way because of how connected he was to Billy and his story and everything that he was going through. But the villains in this movie, although they do connect it to the previous Shazam movie, they don't exactly connect to Billy very well. They have a dysfunctional family aspect, but we don't get to explore their connectivity. You can see the through lines with themes of how the Sisters of Atlas, all have conflicting ideals. They don't exactly know how to unify and come together, which is a contrast to the Shazam family who, although they're going through their own dysfunctions when push comes to shove, they're all able to put their differences aside and work together and save the day. You can see that through line there, but again, we don't have the time to explore any of this. And the character that honestly ruined the most for me was Freddy. I loved Freddy in the first movie, but in this movie, it's super weird about how he acts. At the beginning of the movie, Freddy is kind of an asshole. He very much is acting the way Billy acted when he first became Shazam, which doesn't make sense because Freddy heavily criticized Billy and they had a huge blowout in the first movie because Billy acted like that. But now Freddy is acting like that in this movie. And I was honestly waiting for them to say, like, oh, the reason why Freddy has been acting out like this is because he's obsessed with turning into his Shazam form because it makes him fully able again. I thought the movie was going to explore the fact that Freddy has sort of an addiction to turning into his Shazam form because he feels whole again. But we don't really explore that. It's just kind of Freddy has an arrogant superhero complex thing, and then he gets humbled when he loses his powers. He's like, oh shit, I lost my powers. I kind of made a mistake. And then he tries to rectify everything, and then he just moves on. Like, we don't go through an arc of seeing him really become better. He kind of just loses his powers, and then he, there's a bunch of comedic moments with him and the wizard trying to escape, and the wizard making fun of him, always getting his name wrong, and then he's kind of just back to being the Freddy that we knew from the first movie. We don't exactly get to see him go through a character arc or have that emotional moment with Billy where we understand his vulnerability about why he was so into turning into a Shazam. It's kind of just, well, Fred likes superheroes, and now he's a superhero, so he wants to just be a superhero all the time, which is not that great. Like, it's very underplayed for a character arc that could have been so fantastic. And like I've said, all of the heart is still in this movie. They just don't have time to explore it. Honestly, I think the worst bit in the movie about exploration of the heart, because of all the shit that's going on, is very much Billy and his mom connecting with one another. Is that Billy has an apprehension about calling his stepmom mom, and then he just does it at the end of the movie. But because we didn't have scenes of Billy and his mom really connecting in this movie, we don't exactly feel the impact. It's a very emotional scene. It'll probably tug at your heartstrings just because they're acting very well and the music and lighting and all that stuff. But like, we don't feel it really because we didn't see them really bond or do anything or connect in that way of depth like they did in the original, where Billy finally learned to love his family. And honestly, it's kind of a shame because I can very much see a fantastic movie in here. We just don't have the time to do it because there's just so much happening. There's just way too much going on. And I feel like if Fury of the Gods was like a mini series or maybe even like a 3-hour movie, I think it might have had enough time to focus on things and give the ability to slow down a bit, but it didn't. It didn't have the time to do any of that. So it is what it is. It's extremely unfortunate. I still think at the end of the day that you can sit down and enjoy Fury of the Gods. It is a fun movie with a bunch of hilarious things that happen in it. So that's all I really have to say about Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Let me know if you saw the movie down below, if you agree with me, disagree with me, how you would have wanted the movie to go, so on and so forth. And last but most certainly not least, I'm the innocent villain. And remember, folks, you're innocent to proven villainous, and I'll catch you next time.